Hey guys, and welcome to another jungle tier list video. This video will cover the 8.14 best junglers, meta junglers, whatever you want to call it. We will have both a list for higher ELO, I guess higher than the average, and I'll leave a lower ELO image for the end of the video. If you enjoyed, please make sure to subscribe if you want to see educational content in the near future, and to leave a like or a dislike letting me know what I can change, what I can improve. Other than that, thank you guys all so much. I love you all. Hope you have a nice remainder of the day. For the S plus tier, we have Kindred, Graze, and Trundle. Starting off with Kindred, she went from extremely poor early game to okay mid game and amazing late game. She has a lot of utility from her ultimate, and even if she's behind. But while now she's pretty much the total package deal. It's like her early game got buff, her sustain, her attack speed on her Q, getting marks. There's like methods to get one, to secure one for sure based off the scuttle crabs. And yeah, she pretty much does everything a jungler wants to do, minus the tanky part. But again, she has her ult to keep her teammates alive or to keep her alive as well. She also has very good secures on Baron and Elder, whatever, even Rift. With her ultimate, she can use her ult, bait someone smite out, enemy jungler, and she'll secure it more easily. Aside from that, yeah, she's she's actually amazing right now. Probably the best jungler in the game. The next champion we have is Graze, who's been pretty good the last few patches. I think his win rate's dropped, but he's still the same power farm clearing monster he is. He also has very good dueling potential, again, level 2. And he can go for cheese ganks, and also he can do crabs easily because his auto attacks count as CC towards the crabs, so he can do them way faster. Other than that, he's pretty much the same champion. He's weak against mages, anything that does like physical, I mean not physical, true damage or magic damage are his weaknesses, but there's been like a new setup variation with the press attack domination that has been working wonders for me for the most part. If you want to try that, go ahead. I have a video on that. But other than that, Gray is definitely still S plus tier. And finally, the last S plus tier champion is Trundle. He is the only tank champion that's actually, I think, above A, if you don't count Poppy, which we'll go into later. But the difference between Trundle and the other tank jungler like Zac, Sejuani, Gragas is he has early game dueling potential. He goes press the attack, which synergizes well with his kit. He has an auto attack reset. He has a attack speed steroid, so it's really easy for him to proc the press the attack. Also, the other thing is a lot of the champions doing well in this meta are physical damage dealers, so his Q helps him duel them even better. Other than that, even if Trundle's behind, he has good utility from his pillar. His ultimate helps you shred the tanks. And other than that, he's a pretty good champion. I'd say he's weaker than Kindred and Graze, but if you want to pick up a jungler that has a lot of utility, then pick up Trundle is really good. For the S tier, we have Pantheon, Kha'Zix, Xin Zhao, Talia, and Nocturne. Starting off with Pantheon, he got an attack speed buff, which I was super excited about because I was playing Pantheon before the buzz, and I maintained rank 1 primarily with Pantheon because my understanding of the Scuttle Crab meta was very high compared to other junglers. Other than that, he got a huge buff with that. His clear is better. He can have situations where he procs the passive to block an auto better. And other than that, he's overall a good champion. He just doesn't scale well enough. And there are some matchups that he can like get countered in, like Poppy or Gragas. A really good Poppy or Gragas just goes full armor and makes use of the cancel on the Pantheon's W. But other than that, he is very good. The next champion in the S tier list is Kha'Zix. Many thought the end of Kha'Zix was coming after they changed his R evolution, but seems to not be the case. He's actually still very good, and the sole reason people like Demir are climbing, no offense Demir, but his Q evolution is actually very good. You can do objectives really fast. You have a lot of isolation, DPS or burst, whatever you're going to call it, depending on who you're on. And yeah, he just does a lot of things that junglers want to do. He can even go for cheese ganks level 2 with E of evolution, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. It's better to play the early game safe, just get 6 as soon as possible, and then that's when he sees this huge power spike. Next on the list is Xin Zhao. Xin Zhao has been also a huge menace in the jungle last few patches, such as Graze, obviously, but it's pretty much the same champion. There's not much more to be said about him. His level 2 cheese is probably the best in the game. With Phase Rush, you can easily proc it. The issue with Xin Zhao is he doesn't scale as well as other junglers do. They also changed the Trinity Forester interaction. So unless you get really ahead early game, you're going to have some trouble closing out games. But he also has some utility in team fights with his ultimate. If you're really behind, you can like try to get the enemy team to focus you, pop your ultimate, and try to negate as much damage as possible. The next champion that's up is Talia, the highest AP rated jungler on my list. The issue with Talia is her early game. She needs points in her Q and her other spells before she can have much of an impact. She has some amazing mobility around the map with her passive or ult, but other than that, if you don't make an impact early game, or while the enemy jungler does, you'll have an issue. If both junglers are just like power farming AFKing, then Talia will have a way bigger impact. And that's where I think her strengths come from: her level ups, her experience, her gold. The last jungler on the S tier list is Nocturne, a jungler I'm not too fond of or didn't really think much of after the hotfix nerfs to him. Other than that, a lot of people still play him. I think he's okay against. He's kind of a noob stomp champion. You just go for picks. He doesn't have much utility other than that. And Lethal Tempo, I guess, is really good with him for his passive and such. Other than that, I don't think he's a very good duelist. His level 2 is weak, no cheese potential. His level 3 and 6 are when his kit comes together. In the A tier list, we have 4 champions: Camille, Poppy, Evelyn, and Udyr. All of these champions are like lesser parts of the champions set above. They do everything that those champions do, but less effectively. So to start off with Camille, she is much more a just cheese gank champion, that's all. She's a noob stomper as well. Your entire pattern of ganking is just by going for level 2 cheese ganks and just maxing your hook shot, so you have easier time ganking people. But I feel like there's champions that do that better than her. She just requires way too much gold to be effective as a jungler. She's a way better top laner in my opinion, or even a mid laner at that, but she can still work in the jungle. Next champion in the A tier list is Poppy, who, in my opinion, is extremely underrated and very effective in this meta versus the power picks. So if you look at Kindred, Graze, both of them have dashes, even Xin Zhao, Pantheon. But Poppy just hard counters them if the Poppy is good at timing or just knows how to play the game for that matter. The issue with Poppy is their level 2 isn't as good as those champions. So you have to kind of just hope that nothing happens in the level 2 mark in the game and just rush your level 3 ASAP before looking for a 2v2, a counter gank, or even a 1v1. Next champion that's up is Evelyn, who in my opinion is very good at what she does. The issue with her once again is the early game AP champion, just their early games are non-existent. So she has to get away with the rush to level 6 for her stealth, or just farm up a storm and hope nothing happens on the map, or she'll outscale any other jungler and be more effective in team fights as well. That just comes down to the situation of the game, what's happening, and a bit of RNG. Finally, the last champion in the A tier list is a champion I didn't even want to mention for the higher ELO tier list, but he's just the biggest noob stomper in the game. If you ever walk up to him level 2, level 3, 1v1, you will probably get slaughtered in terms of burst, DPS, what are you going to call it. He doesn't do much except for go for dragons, go for rifts, and go for crabs and look for small skirmishes. But later in this later stage in the game, he's very useless because he just has to walk up to people. And if you ever get stunned by an Udyr with no flash, either you got hard CC'd beforehand or you have no clue how to move. But yeah, that's his weakness late game. In the B tier list, we have Nidalee, Skarner, Rengar, Jax, and Shaco. I think Shaco is the best out of the bunch. His win rate's the highest compared to the B champs in his tier list, but I just don't think he's that great of a champion to look to carry with. He's more of a setup champion now compared to the past. He can't carry hard enough than the likes of Kindred or Graze. So in my opinion, he is way lower than he probably should be. Other than that, let's look at Nidalee. She's top 3 AP jungler, which is not saying much because you can't really compare her to Elise because she's not as good as she used to be. And Fiddlesticks is more of a support, so I don't really consider him a jungler anymore. She can obviously still get the job done, but the issue with her is she needs items and gold to be effective. Her level 3 isn't one of the strongest like it used to be back in the day. There are way stronger level 3 champs now, so other than that, she's a B tier list champion. Next up is Skarner, who I think is one of the other best tank junglers in the game. He can have some early game skirmishing power if he's fighting on the spires. And other than that, he doesn't really offer much except for picks. If you have Predator with Flash, whatever, you can go for picks and team fights. But once your ult's down, you don't really do much unless you're not being focused. You can drop your E's, your auto attacks, and stun people. But it just doesn't have the damage that other champions like Trundle do in the jungle. Now comparing Rengar, I think he is very strong early game, which is kind of weird to say because he was never really known for his early game. His issue is more team fighting. Once his ult is down, he's essentially worthless unless you're fighting your brushes. Other than that, he doesn't really offer much split push potential. Has really bad matchups compared to the junglers that are used in this meta. And I think there are definitely better options in Rengar, like even Nocturne. for picks. As far as Jax goes, I think he's obviously a better top laner than jungler, but he has some matchups he can outclass the enemy jungler in. So let's say Kindred or Graves, similar to Poppy, but I think Poppy's better than both. In these specific matchups, Jax can obviously block their auto attacks, which is the primary source of her damage. And you'll need to like go for an early game counter gank or an early game skirmish where you have the lead in to shut them down and then snowball from there. Other than that, I wouldn't recommend playing in the jungle. Way better top laner, and there are definitely better options than Jax because he doesn't do much except for his QE early game. Next up in the C tier list, we have Gragas, Vi, Kayn, and Hecarim. All of these junglers are pretty much just farm to 6 herbivores, and that's after when they started looking for plays. Gragas is like the only early game jungler out of the batch pretty much, and his early game isn't that great to be honest with you. He kind of wants to farm as well. So if you want to play farm 6 junglers that are actually decent, these are your best bet. But obviously, you're giving up the early game, which is where your teammates may get some trouble if you're not going to look for counter ganks and such. And enemy jungler might just outclass you and snowball the game out of control. In the D tier list, we have Nunu, Elise, Olaf, Rek'Sai. So again, all of these junglers are just not as good as they used to be. I'm surprised Rek'Sai's win rate went down, despite the buff she received to 80 Rek'Sai. I guess people started playing 80 Rek'Sai, and the win rate dropped because I think tank Rek'Sai is even better than 80 Rek'Sai, which is kind of funny to say. But other than that, Olaf, Elise, Nunu, also all of them are just, they're not as good as they used to be. They used to be the top junglers in the game, but different metas come different opportunities. Olaf's just, he can have some effect early game, but then mid to late game is when he falls off really hard. He can't run at people. He loses his entire health bar. Elise, you can dive towers. You have stopwatch for that. You have better junglers. They can tank more tower shots. She can change aggro. She can't tank tower shots like Pantheon. And Nunu just wait for the rework, I guess. Finally, the F tier list, the worst junglers in the game. You will have no reason to ever pick unless in competitive with situationally dependent drafts or counter picks, whatever you want to call it. Zac, Sejuani, and Ivern. Zac went from one of the best junglers in the game to one of the worst, or probably the worst at this point. He has no early game. He needs points in his E. He has no early game dueling potential. He loses too much health. His clear sucks. Everything about Zac is just terrible. Unless, again, you get away with early game then. But you probably won't. You need level 6. You need 3 points in your... Sorry, you need level 9 for all the points in your E. And yeah, pretty much that will never happen without all your lanes losing on their own. So Sejuani as well. She has, obviously, her kit comes together at 3. She has good scuttle crab pressure, which is why you see her in LCS sometimes or some situationally dependent comps. But other than that, she's just too weak early game. It's people have evolved, adapted to her aftershock if they go aftershock, and they know how to play around that. And she just clears way too slow, can easily get invaded, and just fall off way behind. Last but not least, Ivern. I think I played Ivern once, and I was against a level 3 Alistar. I think I was level 4 on Ivern. I think I had double buffs or something, but he was like 10% health, and I couldn't even kill him. So in a meta where you need damage or setup potential, which Ivern provides none of, I guess his Q can root people and you can shield them, but other than that, he's like the polar opposite of what you need on your team. I remember like Nidalee was also decent in the meta where it was like Ardent Sensor meta with like Chalice or whatever, Athenes. I would play her in Season 7, but now it's just not the right meta for him, and that's why it's never going to work in any specific game, really. Aside from that, I will attach a lower ELO tier list at the end of this video. So right now I should be seeing it. If this helps you guys out, let me know, because obviously I don't play in this ELO, so it's not as accurate, but it's just me going off the champions kits, their viabilities, their place in the meta, and pretty much just no experience playing in this ELO, so I can't really tell you by heart. Other than that, thank you guys so much again for watching. Make sure to leave a like. Obviously, subscribe if it helped you out for educational content in the future as well. Have a good one, guys.